Back in action. It is week 4 recap here on the Audible week 4 fantasy football instant reaction. And your reaction to Saints and Falcons wasn't good, Bloom. I think you just regurgitated a little bit. Sorry,
Blah,
Joe.
blah.
When it comes to talking about this game, the Falcons get the win. They're 2-2, and the score is 26-24. The Saints are now 2-2 as well. And all right, what's going on here? Derek Carr, no touchdowns, 1 INT, 239 through the air. Chris Olave, 8 for 87. Rashid Shaheed, 8 for 83. Alvin Kamara, 7 for 42 as a receiver, and then 19 for 77 and 1 rushing touchdown. Taysom Hill with 2 rushing touchdowns. But the Saints aren't winning like they were earlier. Going in the wrong direction. Build a model airplane, says me. So what do you say, Bloom, about what's going on with the Saints here?
Yeah, a really sickening loss for the Saints for the second week in a row. There's going to be so many plays they look back on this game. How did they lose this game? They should be a 4-0 team, or at least a 3-1 team. How do they lose this game? Well, they were actually behind because of a muff punt that turned into a touchdown and a deflected pass that Troy Anderson, showing that he used to be Montana's option quarterback before he was a linebacker up in Montana. Troy Anderson with a return for a touchdown. Massive game for him. But the Saints hanging around early on. Taysom Hill with 2 rushing touchdowns. If you plugged him in as your tight end, you loved that. And then he left with an abdomen injury. So we can't even have Taysom Hill. The football gods would not even let us have that today. Although if you got in, you got some pretty good points from your tight end. Chris Olave, you can tell he was banged up, catching a lot of balls. Rashid Shaheed, showing that he doesn't need to catch a bomb for a touchdown to be valuable in your lineup. He sets a career high with 8 catches. And then Alvin Kamara, taking a lot of punishment, but also putting up a lot of points, getting a go-ahead touchdown late. And then we'll talk about how the Falcons were able to finish this one. But the Saints, who I still think are a good team, face another team that maybe is a good team when they go to Kansas City next week.
Saints have a good defense, and the Falcons' offense was just slightly better. But you look over the box score, you're like, what did they really do? I mean, Darnell Mooney, 356. If you had him as a what the heck flex, sure. But Bijan, Tyler Algier with 60 yards on the ground, Bijan with 28. Drake London, 6 for 64, and Kirk Cousins with 238, but no touchdowns, 1 INT, but they won. Okay.
Yeah, they win. And this was as inexplicable of a win as their loss was to the Eagles or earlier this year. So how do you end up winning, losing these games? Or did they beat the Eagles? My brain is scrambled because that's how the NFL season has been so far. Because it is difficult when you watch these games to say there was a better team or a worse team, even though it was the Falcons with that win. So the Falcons get another inexplicable win. Sorry. How do they do it? Well, again, there was a muff punt that they recovered for a touchdown. There was an interception return for a touchdown. There was one offensive touchdown, but really, Tyler Algier. I'm sorry, 4 field goals. Tyler Algier. Bijan Robinson. Sorry if you took him in the first round. Tyler Algier is one of the best things the Falcons offense has going. Robinson did have a reception on a short pass that he ran into the end zone, called back by penalty. So it was there for Robinson to at least have a decent day. But this is going to be a committee. This is going to be a committee because Tyler Algier looks really good out there. The original comparison piece that I saw of his upside to James Conner, I mean, he looks like James Conner out there. And if you have James Conner, you're going to use James Conner. You're also going to use Bijan Robinson. You're also going to use Drake London. And even though Darnell Mooney was just 3 for 51, he drew a pass interference on Paulson Adebo, who had a pretty big day on the defensive side, that set up the game-winning field goal, the longest field goal, 58 yards for Younghoe Koo. Who was not used? Kyle Pitts. And see, we're going to dissect this one for a while. I don't know if it was the injury robbing something from him, because in this rookie year, he looked like he was on trajectory to be this player. First non-quarterback taken in the draft, fantasy force. He was on his way. He didn't really have that impressive of a year. And I think he had around 1,000 yards in his rookie year for a tight end. That's impressive. I don't know if it was the injury, but you have a new regime now. They're not using him by design, and he's not giving them any reason to. So coming soon to a shut him down segment, probably, but hard to shut down these Falcons with Tampa Bay coming to town in an NFC South showdown.
Yeah, show it down. Do we have to talk about this game? It is the Broncos show. Let's go Jets and Broncos together at the same time, Bloom. Rain was coming down. Not much going on offensively. Aaron Rodgers getting the hell beat out of him. The Broncos win, but my God, this was ugly. So let's talk about both. I guess we have to talk about Javonte with Tyler Bidet getting banged up. Breece Hall shut down. Braylon Allen kind of shut down. Aaron Rodgers getting 14 quarterback hits. This is bad.
Yeah, this was bad football. Cease, this was one of those games. Maybe you can speak to this, Cease. This is one of those games that if you're watching this game, you wonder, what did I do with my life? How did I end up here? That spending time watching this quote unquote football is what I'm doing, because it was terrible. It was a terrible game. It was played in a downpour. And I suppose that's the best recipe for Denver to have a chance to win. Tyler Bidet, kind of scary situation when he has to be put on a backboard on the sideline. Anything update on that?
I just did a post-game show, so I have no idea.
Yeah, so
I have no idea
on that.
And I think Javonte, let me just say what I can say, Bloom.
Yeah.
Javonte looked good today because he had the pressure of he was going to get replaced. That's my opinion. Take it for whatever you want, but you saw a motivated Javonte today.
Yeah, and maybe we'll see Blake Watson, depending what's going on with Bidet. Javonte Williams back from the dead. Bo Nix made, I think, 2 plays in this game, basically. That's enough. That was enough. 2, maybe 3. That was enough. Cortland Sutton back from the dead. Denver has 2 wins somehow, and they're facing Las Vegas, so maybe they can get to 3 next week. Garrett Wilson had a fumble early. Denver couldn't convert that into anything. Again, with Aaron Rodgers, you could see that mentally, everything he's learned from playing this game for so long, he still has that going. But what he doesn't have going is the ability to really threaten that far downfield or make the kind of plays that turn a game that he used to make. But you did see Mike Williams doing more. Of course, you still got Alan Lazard, Garrett Wilson. I don't know if we're going to see a lot of fantasy production from this pass offense, although we also have to give credit to Denver, who does have a good defense. The other thing we're seeing here is, Cecil, you can tell me if I'm wrong, Braylon Allen looked like a better player than Breece Hall today. I mean, let's give credit to the Denver defense. But if you didn't know anything about these players and you were watching this game, you would think like, well, they should be playing that guy Allen more than that guy Hall. So we just talked about this with Bijan Robinson. Now we can talk about it with Breece Hall. You're not liking what you have here. When this offense was running through the backfield and they were still very productive and there are a lot of touchdown opportunities, you say, well, if this is a 60-40 backfield in favor of Hall and he's getting these opportunities in the passing game and he's getting the touchdowns, we're not as worried about that. But now we're looking at Braylon Allen affirmatively looking like a better player. And see, at some point, I think you may see Robert Saleh and the Jets say, we prefer Allen to be on the field in key situations if this trend continues. And the Jets have a tough matchup at the red-hot Vikings next week.
Yeah, red hot. We'll see about that. Red hot Tampa Bay. I mean, they were happy after beating Detroit, and then Broncos beat them. And then they were unhappy, and they took it out on Philadelphia. So it's like, I guess the key in the NFL is be pissed off all the time. Be like the Hulk. You know what my secret is? I'm always angry.
Emotion. Yeah.
33-16, righteous anger. 33-16, the final score. Tampa's 3-1. Eagles are 2-2. Jalen Hurts, 158 through the air, 1 touchdown, no INTs, also 1 rushing touchdown. Saquon Barkley, 10 for 84. And then Barkley had 2 for 32 as a receiver. It was Paris Campbell with the receiving touchdown. Of course, going into this game, you're like, well, who the hell is going to catch the ball? Because you have no A.J. Brown. You have no Devontae Smith. So Dallas Goedert, 7 for 62. Not every game can be 180 yards. And then, hey, maybe Jahan Dotson. Nope. I mean, Campbell did get that touchdown, but nope. Jalen didn't have much to throw to other than Barkley and Goddard. But even then, he only threw it for 158 yards. So there you go.
Yeah. Basically what you expected with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith both out. So if you started Hurts and you got about 20 points, I feel like you escaped here because the Bucs were going to run the Eagles out of the building. So Hurts got to play against some pre-vet defenses. Saquon Barkley had a long run to keep the team with a slight pulse. But no, they got humiliated in this building in the playoffs last year, which led people to wonder, is Nick Sirianni going to keep his job? I don't know if Nick Sirianni is going to get fired during the bye, but I do know, and look, again, without the wide receivers, we can't put too much on this team, but they look like a team that is not a playoff team, not a contender. Dallas Goedert did what you were looking for. Saquon Barkley, this is a floor game, but they're going into their bye. They got to get this thing sorted out. And at some point, we might have to ask, is Washington the favorite in the AFC East?
or the NFC East. Either
I'm
one.
sorry, the NFC East, either one, because I forget. I'm again another NFL Sunday scrambling my mind. But my point here is Philadelphia not looking like a favorite in any division.
Yeah, I think it was Calbudo in the chat room, who's our dude. He's like, NML, National Meh League. Yeah, some meh out there. Tampa Bay's not that, though. You blankety blank right. Baker Mayfield, 347. 2 touchdowns, no INTs. Mike Evans, 8 for 94 and a touchdown. Chris Godwin, 6 for 69. Nice. Kate Otten, 6 for 52. It was Trey Palmer with the other receiving touchdown. Then Bucky Irving, 10 for 49 and a touchdown. Rashad White, 10 for 49, but no touchdown. White also had 2 for 35 as a receiver, aiding his fantasy day. Bucky Irving also had 1 for 6, helping out a little bit there as well. So, yeah, let Baker sling it. Use Mike Evans and use more Bucky Irving. Well, I mean, I guess they were equal today.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? You're going to look at this situation as one where we're not going to have a clear start week to week. You did see Bucky Irving at the goal line. Maybe he's going to get the touchdowns and he might be the better play. But Rashad White was pretty good. Who was really good is Baker Mayfield. Again, Cecil, let's say hats off to the Denver defense, because we may look back at Denver's performance against Baker Mayfield as the best performance any defense has against this offense. Because they looked like everything was going to work. You saw Trey Palmer go down. Draylen McMillan was already down. Sterling Shepard citing everybody, but a lot of Mike Evans. And we saw Todd Bowles say, I want to see more Mike Evans. 14 targets, led the team in catches and yards. And it's a floor game. Again, 6 for 69, I think, is a floor game for Chris Godwin. You're still very happy that you have him. Kate Otten had 2 games in a row that were pretty good for fantasy. And this time it wasn't because of desperation. It wasn't because it was against the Broncos. And Baker Mayfield is a fantasy quarterback 1, and he's a fantasy quarterback 1 next week at Atlanta. And that's where Tampa Bay can make a statement that 3, no, maybe 4 division titles in a row.
All right. Bengals. They got their first win against Carolina. Yay. 34-24, the final score. And Joe Burrow goes 2 touchdowns, 1 INTs, 232 yards. Jamar Chase, 3 for 85 and a touch. T. Higgins, 6 for 60. Zach Moss gets a receiving touchdown, then 51 yards on the ground. Chase Brown, 80 yards on the ground, 2 rushing touchdowns, also 2 for 12 as a receiver. So they win. It is Carolina. We'll get to more of that because it's Carolina with Andy Dalton slinging it. But it's like, all right, Cincinnati, it took this, and you won by 10. True. But it's like, wow, maybe Fantasy Jams would have been expecting a little bit more.
Yeah, I think for Burrow, the reason you didn't get more was just because Chase Brown scored 2 touchdowns. But the points were there, and the big games are going to come for Burrow because now you're seeing this pass offense rounding into form with T. Higgins, who was very involved early. Jamar Chase, now looking like Jamar Chase, breaking a bunch of tackles on the way to the end zone on a 60-plus yard touchdown. Eric All, there's your number 1 tight end. Even Andre Iosivas, and Iosivas is a downgrade, obviously, with Higgins back and central in the passing game. Iosivas isn't going to get the targets he was getting, but when that's your number 3 receiver, a player that already has trust from Joe Burrow, trust in the red zone, and again, Eric All really coming along as a 2-way tight end. Always watch them Iowa tight ends. This pass offense is going to be a good pass offense, and of course, it's added with a bad Bengals pass defense. That's going to create some combustible situations, including this backfield. So going into draft season, do you take Chase Brown or do you take Zach Moss? Through the first 3 weeks, well, I wish you had taken Zach Moss. But after this week, with Chase Brown getting 2 short yardage touchdowns, and that's where we thought that's Zach Moss. So you look at his build, you look at his history in the NFL, that makes him, Chase Brown's the speed guy. But if they're really going to use these guys more interchangeably, both of them were good fantasy plays today. As long as this pass offense is creating these kinds of points and scoring opportunities, they can both be good plays going forward, including a showdown. Talk about a good matchup for passing games. Baltimore coming to Cincinnati next week.
Oh boy, lots to work out in the AFC North. We'll get to Pittsburgh in a little bit, but let's talk Carolina's side. Andy Dalton, 220, 2 touchdowns, 1 INT, 1 to Deontay Johnson, 7 for 83, 1 to Xavier Legette, 6 for 66. Devil get out. 1 receiving touchdown there as well. Chuba Hubbard, 104, 1 rushing touchdown, 4 for 17 as a receiver as well. So they're figuring it out, Bloom. They didn't win, but offensively, thank you, Andy Dalton.
Yeah, Andy Dalton, it wasn't a mirage because the Raiders' business decisions, the Raiders last week, you might say, well, how much of that was Andy Dalton reviving this offense and how much of that was the Raiders, a team that is making Antonio Pierce look a little in over his head? Who's not in over his head is Xavier Legette. Xavier Legette, in place of Adam Thielen, has some legs. And it's not just, we saw him coming out of South Carolina as a guy, wow, he's big, wow, he's fast, he's good with the ball in his hands, but what can he do as a route runner? What can he do against NFL cornerbacks? You saw a lot of skills in this one, not just traits, not just athleticism. So that's good while we wait for Adam Thielen to come back from IR. Of course, Deontay Johnson's going to be making plays. He's an every week play. He's a wide receiver one. And Chuba Hubbard continues to be a running back one, even in a bad game script. And we'll see when Jonathan Brooks is going to be back. We're going to talk about this on the Waiver show. Brooks, Chubb, and Hawkinson. If your league doesn't have IR spots, just make sure someone's been rostering them. All of these guys look like they're going to come back in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Brooks may be the earliest because I think that was the one that was most cautious and not because he legitimately needed extra time to get back into football shape. Dalton was a solid play this week. This was a good matchup. Next week, Chicago, not as good of a matchup, but we know that this offense is going to stick around as one that can create some fantasy value.
Yeah, fantasy value abounds. Maybe not. In our next game that we're going to talk about, week 4 recap here on the Audible. And we've got Texans 24, Jaguars 20. Trevor Lawrence, 2 touchdowns, no INTs, but 169 on 18 to 33. Okay. Brian Thomas, 6 for 86 and a touchdown. Yes. Christian Kirk, 7 for 61 and a touchdown. Cool. Brenton Strange, Evan Ingram may be back next week. At least they were kind of dancing around that on some reports, so whatever. Travis Etienne, 11 for 50 on the ground, 1 for 10 as a receiver. Tank Bigsby, 7 for 90, including a big 58-yarder. So, I mean, it was close, Bloom. Is that a win for Jacksonville, who's 0-4? Hey, we were close to Houston.
Yeah, it was a last stand kind of game for Doug Peterson, and the Jags did summon up their best effort of the year. Not good enough. 0-4 is the kind of record where, team starts to look at making changes. They're not going to be making a change at quarterback, obviously, with Trevor Lawrence, but at fantasy, you're not really going to be putting Trevor Lawrence in. You are going to be putting Brian Thomas in, who had the touchdown, and Christian Kirk. You see that struggle target, or you see this is a short-range target that Trevor Lawrence knows how to make it work with him. We'll see if Evan Ingram comes back, if that cuts into what Kirk is going to do. We saw Travis Etienne get dinged up early, a shoulder issue, picking up a blitz. Tank Bigsby comes in, and just like in week 1, he rips off some big runs. In fact, Jacksonville could have won this game if they had actually converted after he ripped off one of his big runs. It was actually quarterback draw. Don't know if that's the one you want to go with on 4th and goal with Trevor Lawrence. Quarterback draw? Frank Schwab, your buddy Frank Schwab said he knew the play call. Even he knew the play call when he saw the formation. So Frank Schwab, I love you, Frank. If Frank Schwab is sitting at home being, I know what they're going to do, the defense probably knows what they're going to do. Okay, so that was a turning point in this game. And Jacksonville, 0-4 in the AFC South. You're not really out of it because it's probably back to being the worst division in football. And they play a team that thinks of themselves as a contender. Indianapolis, after a day for Indianapolis, had some ups and some downs. In the end, spoiler alert, they win and they come to Jacksonville next week.
Houston side, CJ Stroud, 2 touchdowns, 345. Most of it to Nico Collins, 12 for 151 and a touch. Stephon Diggs, 5 for 69. Nice. And then 1 rushing touchdown for Diggs there as well. Darren Ogunbowale with 1 receiving touchdown, 4 for 47. Ogunbowale with 2 for 7 on the ground. And then Cam Akers back in our good graces. I don't know. 13. Joe Mixon, where are you? 13 for 53 on the ground from Akers. And, I guess I should say Dalton Schultz with 3 for 34. So, they win. Certainly a big day for Stroud and Nico. That's fun to watch.
Yeah, this is the Stroud game you're looking for. You took Stroud as your quarterback 1. You've been waiting for it, and you found it against Jacksonville. And Nico Collins should have been a first-round pick. Am I talking about fantasy or am I talking about the NFL? Does it matter, Cecil? The Nico Collins contract already looks like a bargain. And there were a lot of people, I wish I could name a few of them. As soon as Nico Collins signed his extension, a lot of people said, this is going to instantly look like a bargain. and it does. And certainly if you got Nico Collins in the second round of your fantasy draft, that also looks like a bargain here. Stephon Diggs with the first rushing touchdown of his career, making a good day for him. Cam Akers was solid as a runner, but you saw some Dare Ogunbowale, you saw some J.J. Taylor called up from the practice squad in this game. Larry Tunsil got hurt in this one, so we're going to watch that. But C.J. Stroud, if he can keep playing like this, they can probably win the division. I don't know if they can beat Buffalo next week, though.
Yeah, that's a big what if. What if I were to tell you that Anthony Richardson gets hurt and Joe Flacco beats the Steelers? I would not be happy with that.
Him again?
I know. Didn't Troy Polamalu jump over the pile and pile drive him in the AFC Championship?
And that was a lifetime ago. See, how is it that we're sitting here in the year 2024 and Joe Flacco is still one of the nemesis of the Pittsburgh Steelers? How does that happen? How is this real?
I hate him. Like, oh, God. Because once Richardson goes down, your brain immediately goes, all right, who's the backup? And then him?
Yeah.
He is him. 27-24. Colts get the win. Congrats. You're 2-2. Steelers now 3-1. And here's what I don't want to happen. Now, Justin Fields, 312, 1 touchdown, no INT, sacked 4 times. George Pickens, 7 for 113. Pat Freiermuth, 5 for 57 and a touch. Najee Harris, 3 for 54 as a receiver. And then 13 for 19 as a runner. Fields with 2 rushing touchdowns. Cordero Patterson was 6 for 43. Fields, by the way, had 55 yards rushing. I don't think it happens, Bloom, so talk me off the ledge. Now that they've lost with Fields as the starter, I don't want to hear.
Don't let Mike Tomlin. Don't even put the thought out there. Mike, don't do it. The only reason the Steelers had a chance to win this game was because of Justin Fields. Okay. Mm-hmm. First of all, I want to call out my buddy, friend of the couch, friend of the Audible, Marcus Mosier. So the Colts were without like 5 of their best 7 players in his estimation. Kenny Moore, one of the best, DeForest Buckner is already out. They're missing all these players, right? And he says, Steelers -1 lock of the week. Never say lock of the week. What are you doing? He's from Erie, Pennsylvania, which is actually almost equidistant between 3 NFL franchises, but I think it's mostly a Steelers town. And why do you hate the Steelers? You can never hang that on anybody. Why are you putting that evil on the Steelers? Justin Fields, there was a play when he held onto the ball for too long and fumbled because of it. But really, the Steelers only had a chance in this game because of Justin Fields. And if you had Justin Fields in your lineup, your fantasy team probably won. You got the performance you wanted as a Steelers fan, though, not the outcome you wanted. As you did see Cordero Patterson, he was getting hot, Cease. The fantasy gods have to take Taysom Hill and Cordero Patterson from us on the same day. What did we do? What did we do to anger you? Why? So Najee Harris, last man standing, not a lot of fantasy value. He did have a long catch and run, but let's watch that going forward. George Pickens fumbling inside the 5, inside the 10, inside the 5. That was a key play in this game. Pickens still had a pretty big game. You did see Calvin Austin fade back into the background. It was smooth. Pat Freiermuth with the good. If Jesse James just could have done what Pat Freiermuth did, if we're going to go back to the passes, then maybe the Steelers, we'd be talking about some different history. And again, the Indy defense was short-handed. Okay, this should have been a game where the Steelers were able to establish the run against this poor Colts run defense. Again, Harris like 13 carries for 18 yards, something like that. So a lot of questions. It's funny for a team cease to be 3-1 and have a lot of questions. That's the 2024 NFL.
Pretty much. Colts side, Richardson, hip injury. Is that right, Bloom? Yeah. Hey, Anthony Richardson's banged up. What's new? Joe Flacco comes in, couple of touchdowns, 1 to Josh Downs, 8 for 82 and a touch. Drew Ogletree, 1 for 15 and a touch. Michael Pittman, 6 for 113. Jonathan Taylor, 3 for 20 as a receiver, and then 21 for 88 and 1 rushing touchdown. But here you go, Colts. You're dealing with the banged up Anthony Richardson again.
Yeah. And I guess it's a physiological thing, right? Because big, I guess, doesn't equal durable. He's big. He's built the way you would think that a quarterback can take some shots, but he took a shot kind of in his back around his hip. He got up and he was holding his hip. And I think the announcers even said, well, they're not going to call another run, right? Guess what they did? They called another run. Guess what happened? He left the game. Okay. It was reminding me of that game when RG3 in the playoffs was clearly not even able to defend himself, and Washington kept him in there. The rest is history. I'm not saying it's going to be that bad for Anthony Richardson, and they have Joe Flacco, so they can take it easy and let this injury heal, whatever it is. But yeah, Colts, you might want to rethink that whenever your quarterback is already hurt, putting him in a line of fire. But again, Joe Flacco, we talked about this in the preseason. The Colts in this strange situation where if their starting quarterback goes down, all of a sudden, Michael Pittman, who had gotten off to a hot start, Pittman already had 2 catches for about 60 yards when Richardson went out. Okay, so it wasn't just Joe Flacco, but Josh Downs, who's supposed to be Anthony Richardson's favorite target, and the Steelers just had no answer for Downs. On key plays, they just couldn't cover him. And that's the thing, Cease. I mean, as much as I love the Pittsburgh Steelers, when you're asking them to cover on third down pass, but if the pass rush doesn't get home, hang on tight. And that maybe, should be the strategy against players like Josh Downs. And then, of course, Jonathan Taylor. And Jonathan Taylor didn't take this game over, but his presence was still there. And it made it easier for this team to hang on to that lead, to get a win, very much put themselves in this division race, again, against Jacksonville next week. You're on mute.
Oh boy, I figure I would do that. It's now time for the Rams and
That
the
was
Bears.
that was for Dr. Gene.
Yes, there you go. 24-18, the final score. The Bears get the win. They're 2-2. Rams are 1-3. Stafford 224, no touchdowns, 1 INT. Tutu Atwell with 4 for 82. Jordan Whittington 6 for 62. Demarcus Robinson 2 for 37. Kyron Williams 19 for 94 and 1 rushing touchdown. But that's it. They couldn't pull it off even with 9 fourth quarter points to pull a little bit closer, yet still fall short.
See, how good could like the Raiders be with Matthew Stafford at quarterback? Like, how many teams could you say if they had Matthew Stafford, they would actually be a legitimate team?
Mm-hmm.
He's good. He's a good quarterback. He's a really good quarterback. I mean, I don't want to say he's a Hall of Fame quarterback, but I do want to say that what Matthew Stafford is doing when he's completely outgunned and really took so many hits in this game, he laid it on the line for his team in a lost season. Let's face it. Puka Nacua is going to be out for another month or more. Cooper Kupp 2 more weeks. I mean, this is a lost season for the Rams. But Matthew Stafford's going to hang in there and keep his team in the game. He's not going to create much in terms of fantasy value. Tutu Atwell, Jordan Whittington, they worked out as what the heck flex type plays. Kyron Williams, that's another guy we have to say he doesn't get the due that he deserves. Forget about for fantasy. Just what a player. And I don't know how. I shouldn't say that. It was his numbers. It was his testing numbers. So maybe the NFL with Kyron Williams, and we're going to see it again with Bucky Irving, Cease. Don't put too much stock in those numbers when the film doesn't match the numbers. If the film doesn't match the numbers, Cease, you trust the film. So anyway, you did see Montez Sweat get a big sack fumble in this one. Again, with the Bears, if you're talking about the Bears one, the defense probably played a role in that. The other thing that's curious, Blake Corum. I mean, and Ronnie Rivers picking up blitzes, making some plays, not to take away anything from Ronnie Rivers. But how is it you take Blake Corum in the 3rd round? He's getting first team snaps in camp. The team is raving about him, right? Sean McVay saying how much they like him. And they just have no use for him, I guess. That's curious. What's not curious, again, is how did the Bears win? It wasn't because of Caleb Williams.
No, it's not. It was because, DeAndre Swift, 16 for 93 and a rushing touchdown. Roschon Johnson, 7 for 26 and a rushing touchdown. Swift also 7 for 72 as a receiver. DJ Moore had a receiving touchdown, 3 for 22. Cole Kmet, 3 for 34 in this one. And Caleb, efficient, 17 of 23, 157, 1 touchdown, no INTs, sacked 3 times. And fumble. Well, they didn't lose, looks like. But anyway, so there you go. There's your Bears. But hey, they're 2-2 and they're feeling good at home.
Yeah, they get a win with some defense and DeAndre Swift. A lot of people leaving DeAndre Swift for dead. It was the structure of the running game, which got better against an ailing Rams defense, although this Rams defense was really vulnerable against the pass last week. And they didn't really put that much on Caleb Williams. So you did see DJ Moore get that touchdown. You like to see that hookup, but that's it. Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen. I don't know how you're going to feel comfortable starting anybody in this passing game, maybe DJ Moore week to week, but it's exactly how they drew it up in the sense that it's the running game and the defense that led them to a win, which is not that exciting fantasy. But again, he's 2-2. I mean, the Broncos are 2-2, and the Bears are actually facing the Panthers, and they have the Panthers second round picks. So how much fun is that? If they win, they actually increase their draft capital.
There you go. Make it happen. The final game, and I think I just forgot it, but we're not going to forget it now because it was awesome. So at least we get to win. We get to end on a good one. We get to end on Minnesota and Green Bay.
Yeah.
And Minnesota getting that win, 31-29. Sam Darnold on fire, 275, 3 touchdowns, 1 INT. Justin Jefferson, 6 for 85 and a touch. Jordan Addison, 3 for 72 and a touch. Josh Oliver with the other receiving touchdown. Aaron Jones, 22 carries, 93 yards. By the way, Jordan Addison with a rushing touchdown as well. And then Aaron Jones as a receiver getting 4 for 46. But they found their formula and they found the recipe. It's efficient play. It's running the hell out of the ball. And then play action passing, Sam Darnold, make it happen.
Yeah. Would you believe this game was 28-0 Minnesota at one point? So the Packers almost, Tucker Kraft doesn't fumble. This play goes this way, goes that way. Maybe the Packers claw back into this. It wasn't as close as it seems. The Vikings were dominant on both sides of the ball in the first half. Sam Darnold, first 8 receptions go to 8 different receivers. That's game planning and that's quarterbacking. Sam Darnold better than Kirk Cousins? Well, in this offense, it sure looks like it. And for fantasy, again, Jets, that's a stiff test next week, but we thought the Packers were going to be a stiff test, although they didn't have Jair Alexander. So because of that, Jordan Addison catches a touchdown, Justin Jefferson catches a touchdown, Jordan Addison also runs one in. Aaron Jones very strong in his revenge game. And again, this team's a Super Bowl contender. This team's a Super Bowl. Put your priors away, okay? Brian Flores has this defense peaking. Kevin O'Connell and Sam Darnold have this offense peaking. This is a Super Bowl contending team. They played legitimate teams, all right? They played a variety of teams. They're 4-0, and they are good on both sides of the ball. And the Packers are probably saying, wait until next time. We're going to get you.
Yeah. Well, hey, you fight back like this. You're like, okay, it's a loss. It's a divisional loss. It's a home loss. But you did fight back. As you mentioned, 28-0 at one point. You fought back with Jordan Love. 4 touchdowns, 3 INTs. 389 yards, 139 to Jaden Reed and her touchdown. Dontavian Wicks, 5 for 78 and 2 touchdowns. Tucker Kraft, 6 for 53 and a touchdown. Romeo Doubs, 4 for 39. And then Josh Jacobs, 9 for 51 on the ground. You were out of this game, so you didn't run the ball more than 19 times. And one of those was Jaden Reed, and one of those was Jordan Love. So, if you're in a game, maybe you run a little bit more. Love doesn't throw 54 times. So, yeah, things kind of added up that way. And the math was wrong from the start for Green Bay.
Yeah, sometimes in fantasy, your quarterback play can be good because they were so bad that they had a chance to play against a pre-event defense for a long time. And we saw Jordan Love was rusty. And I even thought they've had him go out there with a knee brace. That's very unpackers-like. They're usually very conservative about these kinds of decisions. Because if he needs a knee brace, that tells me he could probably use another week, right? Hey, maybe let that knee feel a little bit more stable, a little bit more steady before you put him out there. Second half, though, you did see the rust knocked off. And you saw Jordan Love, even without Christian Watson, who left with an ankle injury on an interception in this one, Camus Grugier Hill. You saw Dontavian Wicks get in there. We always knew, hey, Dontavian Wicks is good. Christian Watson's in his way. Now Watson, at least for the rest of this game, wasn't in his way. We'll be talking about him on the waiver wire show. Jaden Reed, a star budding here, certainly for fantasy. Tucker Kraft did have that fumble, but I mean, he was outstanding for fantasy from the tight end position, and we love the way he plays the game. Something we're going to watch, though, is this situation with Josh Jacobs. He did have those 4 catches, but Emmanuel Wilson, It's not going to go away. This is not an 80-20, 90-10. Josh Jacobs is a true lead back kind of backfield. Emmanuel Wilson was playing well enough to make it into more of like a 2/3, 1/3 thing. That's going to cap Jacobs' upside. Green Bay going to face the Rams next week, even though they lost. They kind of got some momentum coming out of this game. And in a season when, we're not really sure what teams are good, I think that Minnesota's good. And I think that Green Bay is going to be fine.
Anything from the afternoon games that's going on right now, Bloom, that you would like to highlight?
Yeah, well, again, I think Jaden Daniels is for real. This Washington team is for real, transformative. Patriots, not for real. Raiders, a little slow start, but I think Antonio Pierce got through to them. Chiefs lose Roshy Rice in this one, trying to make a tackle on an interception. Let's watch this. But you did see Xavier Worthy at least get a touchdown. You are seeing Travis Kelce come alive. So I guess you had to sacrifice Roshy Rice for Travis Kelce to have fantasy value, for Xavier Worthy to have fantasy cup value again. And I mean, I guess it's this, again, an AFC West, AFC. I got it right, Cease. I mean, if the Chiefs' offense is toothless, remember the Chiefs have been winning, but they've been barely winning. If the Chiefs' offense is toothless, Carson Steele fumbles in this one. We thought we had something in Carson Steele. Maybe not so much now, as we've seen a lot more Kareem Hunt since that fumble. Change, a lot of change. And look, if you can't beat the Chargers when they don't have their starting tackles, when Justin Herbert is playing on a gimpy leg, then maybe we need to rethink the Chiefs. And I say that, and then we'll rethink them because, they're the Chiefs.
Jamie says the Browns are for real. Really bad.
Yeah, the Browns are bad. And I mean, they don't have Joe Flacco. Maybe it's Jameis Winston this time. But yeah, if you're going out to Vegas and you're getting run out of the building by Vegas after Vegas just got run out of the building by Carolina in the same building, that ain't good. The ship be sinking, in the words of the great Michael Ray Richardson.
The show be soaring. It is that the Audible, Cecil, Lammey, Sigmund, Bloom, Monday morning waiver wire show. Make sure to stay tuned for that. And of course, Sigmund's full waiver wire report available at footballguys.com. That is a wrap for this program. We appreciate you very much for watching all the time, for listening, however you take in your podcasts. We appreciate you very much. He is Sigmund Bloom. You follow him on Twitter X at Sigmund Bloom. I'm at Cecil Lammey. The show is at the Audible, saying, watch these other videos. They may appear. They may not appear. I don't know. But they may appear. And if they do, Bloom, watch them. Click on them now. And we thank you very much. Stay tuned. And if you would, as always, please stay frosty.